although we want to strengthen our UK churches, we also want to hear from our churches around the world. I think that's going to be part of our strengthening, is standing with our churches around the world and being strengthened by what God is doing. Because we're not isolated here in the United Kingdom. We're part of a bigger family and a body right across the world. So if we have people who are from nations or from the territories or the areas, and there are a few of us in this room from the nations, I'm going to get the person to come up and introduce things. But if not, then we're going to go straight to the video. So it's my great pleasure now to start this meeting by introducing David, or as some of us might know him, David, because that was his given name. But David is now pioneering in Bolivia in South America. So we're going to hear a video from Pepe, who is leading our apostolic team in the Americas, in Mexico, in the Latino world. But before we hear that video, David, why don't you come and greet us and just let us know how things are in Bolivia. Come on. So as soon as David has finished, we'll show the video from Pepe. Thanks, David.
Thanks very much. It's great to be here. In Bolivia, we feel very far away from the rest of the family of ChristCentral often. So for me, it's a real privilege to be here with you this morning, and for these 3 days. And it's been great to get to know one or two people. I came up with some of the guys from Horsham, and with the family from Romania. So that was great. Just wanted to send you our love and our greetings and our appreciation from our congregation in Santa Cruz. Just very briefly, so you know, we started our church through a ministry with working with people on the streets, especially teenagers and young people on the streets in Santa Cruz, in Bolivia. So many of our congregation are people who come from that kind of background or have spent time in drugs, alcohol, or on the streets. And just recently, over the last few years, we've been working with a friend of ours who's with CMS, the Church Mission Society, with doing an income generation program. And so he's been working with some of the families in our church to help them have a source of income, because most of our church people don't have much education. Many of them wouldn't even have finished kind of elementary or high school education. I think we've got one person who's been to university apart from myself and my wife at the moment. Bolivia is one of the poorest countries in the Americas. I think it's second after Haiti in terms of the Western Hemisphere and in terms of poverty. And so if you're talking about people from the streets in one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere, then obviously there's not much wealth in our church. So the income generation has been really important. And over the years, my wife and I have tried to be generous and maybe lend out money. And often what happens if you loan money to somebody, because they can't pay it back, it's embarrassing then to turn up at church. So we're kind of paying people to stay away from church in the end, which is never a good kind of policy or strategy for church growth. So I was praying for years, that we'd have somebody who could come and help us with that kind of thing. And then, this family have moved out there, and I've been working with some of the families in our church, and it's just been brilliant to see. And just one of the families in particular is a guy called Richard, and his wife is Jenny, and they've both spent years on the streets. He was an alcoholic, and they've been coming to our church now for a number of years. He worked since he ran away from home about 13 or 15 years old, and worked as a shoe shiner in one of the local parks. And now he and his wife, with the help of these loans and this income generation project, have got, they run like a public bathrooms, so public toilets where they charge people to come in and use them. They also use it as a storeroom for people who work in the markets and need places to store their stock and their like carts that they go around the market with. They sell things like sodas, Coca-Cola, Fanta, that kind of thing. They sell water, they sell gas, because in Bolivia most people cook with using gas tanks that you have to then get refilled. So he gets them refilled and sells them out to the shops and houses nearby. And it's just brilliant to see how God has taken them from where they were and the destructive lives they have and brought them right through. And they're part of church. They've led worship in our church recently. They've just started a small group in their house. Richard's teaching one of the Sunday school classes, and one of the other things that they're doing is that they've started over a few times now, they've cooked a meal in their house where they have the kind of public bathrooms as well, and the shop that they run and all this kind of thing. And they invite the kids from the park opposite, the homeless kids and the people they know from there, and they invite them in and share a meal with them, and give testimonies or invite someone to talk to them, and pray together, pray for these people. And it's just wonderful to see. I mean, it's been a long process, but it's just wonderful to see how people who've come from that background are now ministering to others in that background. And that, despite all the difficulties and challenges that are in church life, when you're able to step back and see that kind of thing happen, and, it's just praise God for what he's done in their lives. And so, just wanted to share that with you, and, send you our greetings and our love, and, thank you for all your support and encouragement. I don't know if you know that we received support from you guys, especially during COVID as well. That was a big help. And we were locked down for 3 or 4 months, where we were only allowed out once a week, depending on the last digit of your ID number. And that was only to go shopping. It was only in the morning, and you weren't allowed to use any kind of transport that wasn't a bicycle. So you could only walk or cycle to the nearest shops or market to stock up for the week. And then children were only allowed out after the first, I think 3 months, 2 or 3 months, on Saturday mornings, and only within 500 meters of your local house to go to a park or something. So it was quite strict. So in that time, having the donation from ChristCentral, the COVID fund, was just a lifesaver, because one of our families in church were able to get a permit to go out in a car, and they did shopping for hundreds of people, and bagged it all up and took it around different families to sustain people with a week's worth of shopping. So thank you for that, and just thanks again. It's great to be here.